It's 8 o'clock. Let's get our top news bulletin to you now. Dudu Myeni has been removed as chairperson of the SAA board. There have been growing calls for Myeni to leave her post as the national airline suffered massive financial losses. JB Mgwaza replaces Myeni as chairperson. Myeni had been SAA chair since January 2015. SAA was given a bailout thought to be around 3 billion rand from the government's Emergency National Revenue Fund to enable it to meet its debts last year. The final details of a plan to recapitalize the struggling airline are expected to be announced at next week's medium-term budget. For more on this, let's speak to Treasury Spokesperson Mayihlome Tshwete. Mayihlome, thank you very, very much for talking to us. What is the response from Treasury as to the removal of Dudu Myeni as SAA board chairperson?
Good morning, Leanne, and good morning to your viewers. If you recall, there was a cabinet statement that came out about a year ago that spoke to elimination of the tenure of board members on all state-owned companies. When Minister was appointed as the Minister of Finance, the question of the SAA chair came up. The Minister's response has always been in line with what Cabinet had agreed to, which would limit the tenure of board members serving at SAA. He has repeatedly said that the chairperson, amongst others at SAA, would be removed from SAA once the tenure had come to an end. And you recall the extension was done so that SAA could focus on the financials, and ministers now come to the conclusion of that process because he's going to have a special meeting on the 3rd of November. So the tenure of the SAA board chair, as the minister said, is something that has naturally reached its conclusion. And we hope the new appointment of the new chair and the other supportive members of the board that have been appointed strengthens the position of SAA and begins to strengthen the interventions of turning itself around.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit more about the new chairperson, JB Mgwaza, and of course the deputy chair, Nolita Fakode.
Well, the chairperson is quite an experienced private sector player. He's been at the head of a number of big companies. He's been a chairperson for extensive periods of time. He's been a chairperson of the Inkuzi Investment, another property company. So he's quite a well-respected person in terms of being a chairperson, a person that understands how private sector works. Expecting to bring that experience into SAA to lead SAA without being a political disruption or an operational disruption to how our SAA needs to operate. The deputy chair, Nolita Fakode, is also a very well-known person in the private sector circles, from SAA to a number of entrepreneurial things that she's been involved with. I think her experience in the private sector, her business acumen is going to strengthen SAA. Those are some of the interventions, but there are also new board members which also strengthen the board. Some of those are aviation experts. Other of those are business people. So we think SAA is getting a great with some of the people that are coming to the SAA board.
Do you think this is the final strategy to move this airline forward, and perhaps the last attempt of doing that?
Well, it's an important step forward. I think we shouldn't. I don't think we should minimize the problems of SAA to any particular individual. And I want to put this quite clearly, that to say that all of the problems of SAA are a result of Dudu Myeni is just completely inaccurate. There's a long story of decisions that were taken at SAA that have put it in this current position, including how it was moved out of Transnet over a decade ago. All of these decisions that have been taken haven't always resulted in the best outcomes for SAA. So yes, having qualified, experienced, well-respected people on the board of SAA is an important step forward, but there are a number of other operational interventions that need to be taken. There are a number of other policy interventions by government that need to be taken, And there's a lot of discipline that's going to be expected of the executive of SAA for it to turn itself around. So yes, it's a part in the turnaround strategy, but it's not in itself the complete answer to fixing SAA. But it's an important start.
Indeed, I mean, this is, of course, there's a long way ahead for the airline. But just finally, as we wrap up this conversation, Mayihlome, the impact that this new board is going to have on implementing change at SAA, they're obviously been instructed that this has got to be a fast change and something that, of course, is going to just turn this airline around.
Absolutely. Minister has repeatedly said that the patience of the South African public is running out. We get tired of hearing about negative stories about SAA. We understand the environment that it's in, but it's time for SAA to make the tough decisions it needs to make. The question of what to do has already been answered. There's been a number of turnaround strategies that have already been produced for SAA. So what needs to be done is known. What we need is people that have the will to implement those tough decisions. So Minister is of the view that these individuals will have the will. Having a CEO who's also respected in the private sector is also going to give us a person who has the will to do what has to be done. So Minister will continue to apply pressure on the board of SAA to implement the turnaround strategy, give confidence to the public, and eventually reach commercial viability for SAA. As Minister said, that is not insurmountable. It is something that SAA can achieve, and we're going to make sure that they achieve it as quickly as possible.
Thank you so much for your time, Mayihlome Tshwete, speaking to us in his capacity as the Treasury Spokesperson about the appointment of a new chairperson for SAA, JB Magwaza, replacing Dudu Myeni, and of course there's a new deputy chair as well, that is Nolita Fakode.